All right, we're going to dive into a story that honestly just tests the absolute limits of what a human being can endure. We have to go back in time, to an era of boxing with no safety nets, no time limits, just two men fighting until they literally couldn't move anymore. This is the incredible story of the 110-round fight.
Let's just start with the numbers. 110.
7.
And 2 fighters who could no longer stand. I mean, think about that. This unbelievable fight didn't end with some dramatic, movie-style knockout. Nope. It ended because two men had used up every single ounce of energy in their bodies, and they just gave out.
So, the big question is, how on earth was something like this even possible? To really get it, you have to understand the absolutely brutal rules of boxing back in the 19th century.
They actually called it a finish fight, and the name pretty much says it all, right? There was no round limit, there were no judges sitting there scoring points. The whole thing was designed to just go on and on and on until one guy was either knocked out cold or just quit.
You know, when you compare that to today's sport, it's just a world apart. We have a max of 12 rounds, we've got referees, we've got doctors who can stop a fight to protect the athletes. Back then, yeah, they had just started wearing gloves, but the idea of stopping a fight for safety, that was basically non-existent. It was just a pure war of attrition.
So who were these two men who were about to push each other right to the edge and then way past it? Let's meet them.
So in one corner, you've got Andy Bowen. He's the hometown hero from New Orleans, 25 years old, undefeated. His nickname was the Iron Molder, and he was known for having stamina that just never seemed to run out. And his opponent? A guy named Jack Burke, a tough 23-year-old challenger coming into enemy territory to try and take the title.
They were fighting for the lightweight championship of the South and a huge prize of $2,500. Now, to put that in perspective for you, today that's the equivalent of over $85,000. We're talking life-changing money. But, and this is maybe the most crucial part of the story, as big as that prize was, this was about something more. It was about pride. Both of these guys, Bowen and Burke, they were known for being completely unwilling to back down, and the rules of the time meant they'd never have to.
So the stage was set. April 6, 1893, at the Olympic Club in New Orleans. The fight was about to kick off, and I guarantee you, nobody in that arena had any idea what they were about to witness.
The fight starts at 9 p.m. in front of an absolutely electric crowd of 8,500 people. And for the first couple of hours, it's this brutal, fast-paced brawl. But then, around 11:30, after more than 40 rounds, things start to slow down. The cheering kind of turns into this anxious murmur. By 2 in the morning, they're past round 90, and the whole thing has just turned into this bizarre, surreal vigil. People were literally falling asleep in their seats, and still, these two guys fought on.
The physical toll was just catastrophic. Jack Burke shattered the bones in both of his hands from hitting Bowen's skull over and over and over again. Bowen, on the other hand, was so battered and swollen he could barely even see. In those later rounds, they weren't really fighting anymore. They were just leaning on each other to stay upright, throwing these weak, slow-motion punches every now and then.
And then, finally, at 4:19 in the morning, the bell rings for the 110th round. And nothing happens. Neither Bowen nor Burke could get up from their stools. Their minds were still in it, but their bodies had absolutely nothing left to give. The referee, well, he had no choice. He had to declare the whole thing a no contest. The fight was over. But the damage? The damage was permanent. That one single night of fighting would end up destroying both of their lives. The consequences were just devastating. Jack Burke's hands never healed right, which ended his career at just 23 years old. But Andy Bowen's fate was even more tragic. He actually went back to the ring, but just a year later, he was knocked down in a fight, hit his head on the hard canvas, and died the very next day. He was only 26.
So what is the legacy of this completely horrifying event? Well, while it was a personal tragedy for both men, it actually became a massive turning point for the safety of every athlete who came after them.
The sheer brutality of this 110-round fight was a harsh wake-up call. It really shined a light on how barbaric and absurd these finish fights were, and it forced the entire sporting world to take a hard look in the mirror and demand some regulations.
And that's really the core lesson here. This fight became the textbook example of why sports need rules. It wasn't about limiting the competition, no. It was about protecting fighters from their own incredible courage, from their willingness to push themselves way past any rational limit. So the story of Bowen and Burke, it leaves us with this really difficult question. In this constant pursuit of greatness, of pushing our limits, where do we draw the line? Where does celebrating bravery stop and enabling sheer brutality begin? It's a question that sports, even today, are still grappling with.